welcome to Star Wars Music Minute, where we celebrate the music and sound of Star Wars 5 cinematic minutes at a time. I'm Chrysanthi Tan, you can call me Xanthi, and today we are diving into the music and sound contained within minutes 51 through 55 of Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. In this excerpt of the film, Han shoots Greedo, sorts out some business with Jabba, Luke sells his speeder, and they all begin to board the Millennium Falcon. In this 5 minutes, it really centers around everyone having sort of their last chance at life as they knew it. They're all tying up loose ends. So this is like the calm before the storm almost, like everything's about to get a whole lot worse. So we're wrapping up at the Cantina, Luke's wrapping up his life on Tatooine, Leia awaits the fate of Alderaan, and they're just like ready to figuratively and literally fly off to the next stage of their adventure. Today, I'm really delighted to be joined by Justin Mitnik, a friend of mine who plays trombone and is a big Star Wars nerd and is a cast member at Disneyland as part of the Disneyland Band. He's not here to be an official representative of them by any means, but I wanted to definitely tap into his knowledge of Star Wars music as a whole, since he actually plays a lot of this music, including the Cantina Band. More, musician to musician. Hello, Justin.
Hi, Xanthi. How are you? It's great to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to talk to you, especially since we're wrapping up the Cantina at this point, and I feel like the Cantina music in Star Wars is something so different. First of all, it's diegetic, and second of all, it's like actually like a band. It's band members getting to play, getting to perform on screen. If that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And I really think I think also, one of the cool things about it is when you really listen to the full Cantina theme and how it is. I mean, it's very light. It doesn't seem to relate to the bigger story of Star Wars. It's like, here we are, the Cantina musicians are in one spot and they're playing to the masses that are there.
Okay, yeah, you mean light, like sort of lighthearted.
Yes, that's what I mean. Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. That's what the last guest said too. I think you're right. Like it's like, even though this is a very seedy part of town, or a seedy part of the planet, it's still, everything looks fine. We're all here to be entertained. Don't look underneath, just pay attention to the fun music type of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. That's how I always got out of it when watching the movies. I was like, oh, and especially as I was, upcoming as a musician, and then you start playing at different places and different venues, you don't start at the Hollywood Bowl. You start at little places, and sometimes people pay attention to you and sometimes they don't. And that's kind of what I got out of, the Cantina. It's in the background. It's kind of fun. But, if you're not paying attention to it and thinking of other things, that's okay too.
Okay. Would you say that it's pretty realistic portrayal of musicians?
Sure. I think so. I mean, when you really think about it, or at least when I really think about it, yeah. And the themes that have to come out of that, I mean, just imagine beyond what's in the scene, what do they play 10 minutes later? I really feel that there's a lot of trial and error throughout the course of time of what tunes will work and what not, and what might respond to certain galactic races that are coming through. They might see a bunch of whoever and be like, let's play that song, because they usually always tend to like it. That's kind of how I imagine the bigger picture of what the Cantina music is.
That's a good point. And also, like, Cantina Band 1 and Cantina Band 2 are, they're contrasting. Like, they're both like jazzy,
yes.
But Cantina Band 2 is more like, to me, that's like, it reminds me of gigs when like Cantina Band 1 would be like the gig when you're like, okay, well, now we want to make sure that everyone gets up and dances, or like we want to kind of, and
Right.
Cantina Band 2 is sort of like, all right, this is what we're going to do while everyone's sitting down. We're going to serve dessert or something like.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like the cocktail hour versus the main event hour. Yeah.
So which one of those songs do you think in universe is the bigger hit?
Oh, gosh, I can't speak for the whole, Star Wars universe. Me personally, I mean, partially because of, my growing up with Star Wars and the themes of Star Wars. I just definitely like the bip-a-dip, 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 I always love that.
So that's Cantina Band 2, right?
Yep,
Oh,
I think
okay.
so. Yeah.
Interesting. So have you played both of them?
Uh, Personally, I mean, we perform the boop, bip, boop, bip, boop, dip, boop, ba-dip, bidi-did-did, did-did-did-did. That's the one that we always do in the Disneyland Band.
Yeah. What would you say,
So,
like, what else is in the medley?
most of the main themes, the Star Wars main theme, the Han and Leia's theme. You got Rey's theme. There's a lot in the medley that we play. So we have the Imperial marches in there. Yeah,
Oh my gosh,
it's a
I'm so
lot.
curious how they all transition.
Yeah, we
Maybe
play. I mean, it's six minutes straight, so it's awesome.
the whole, it's 6 minutes straight of themes?
Of
That's
medley, yeah, it's the
that's
medley that
so
we put together.
many. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Okay. Um, I would love to play some of the recording that the audience member um, did of your band, or of the Disneyland
sure.
band, to hear how that all goes. Maybe we can let's do that at the end. Um,
Okay.
I'm always curious, like when you have a medley and you have like all these themes, one after another. I'm always curious, like how the audience reacts to the switchover of themes. Like when it's someone's favorite, when it's different people's favorites. Like I feel like there's always like an ah or like a yeah or like cheers at various sections. I feel like Cantina Band's probably a hit.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, and in the medley that we play too, it's hard because we come off the main title theme, which just when it's about to repeat, it goes left turn into Cantina, and Cantina's upbeat and it goes like crazy. So there is the mix of like, yeah, it's such a great theme, and then into Cantina, and everyone like jolts for a second, and you're like, and they're like, oh, I know this one too. This is Cantina. So I think there's also the moment of discovery and recognition from an audience member, including myself. Every time we get into it, I'm like, oh, yeah, I know what's coming next. But it's fun to kind of watch, just people react, and that's one of my favorite things about performing live in general, not just Star Wars, but you see people react to music and how it affects us whether we know it is or not.
Would you say anecdotally that Cantina Band is like one of the tracks that more people recognize, whether they are super familiar with Star Wars or not? Like the main title, I think, has entered the realm of it's recognizable by most people. Cantina Band's up
Yeah,
there too, yeah.
I definitely think Cantina Band is definitely up there.
Yeah, I get that sense too. So how about we go through these 5 minutes, like kind of chronologically? I'll kind of narrate what's
Sure.
happening, and then we can fill in anything we've noticed about the music or sound throughout. Sound good?
Absolutely, sounds great.
All right. Well, we're kind of already at the start of it, which is in the interior of the Mos Eisley Cantina. We have Cantina Band 2 playing in the background, which in the Star Wars universe, that song is actually called If I Only Could Let Go and Cry by Figure and Dawn and the Modal Nodes. So they are playing If I Only Could Let Go and Cry while Han and Greedo are having a conversation. They have just started talking, and Han was about to leave when Greedo poked a gun into his side and said, Unta guta solo? Going somewhere solo? And Han had responded, this was at the end of the last 5 minute chunk, with, yes, Greedo, as a matter of fact, I was going to see your boss. And now we're in the scene. Tell Jabba that I've got his money. And then Greedo says, I'm doing my best, Huttese, here. Challenge, if you're at home, before I tell you the translation, try to guess, like, based on the Huttese, what the English or the basic translation would be. But anyway, Greedo says, Som pichale, varatram tikamakichita, jabawaninchiko pa muishani, kaitani wanya ruska. And then he laughs.
Actually, I'm impressed already. So this is fantastic.
Chusu. How was my Huttese?
I'm no expert, but I mean, I'm impressed that I'm pretty sure everyone would at least understand you.
So basically, Greedo is saying, it's too late. You should have paid him when you had the chance. Jabba's put a price on your head so large, every bounty hunter in the galaxy will be looking for you. I'm lucky I found you first. I feel like a really recognizable part of that is the Sompi Chale. That's like a part that's ingrained in my memory. And of course, we have Greedo with the flanger on his voice. That thing that makes him sound like metallic and sort of like doubled. It's pretty great. And Han says, yeah, but this time I've got the money. You can interrupt me at any point, Justin. How do you feel about this scene?
Well, it's funny. I think there's a difference with the first few times that you see it, and then as an adult, kind of re-looking at it. When I was a kid, I always thought Han Solo was the coolest guy ever. So, it didn't really matter to me, like he got out of that situation. But as an adult, I'm like, oh, I get it. This is kind of a serious little moment here where Han Solo might have been not a character in the story had it gone a little bit differently. So, and especially with the bargain that Luke and Obi-Wan strikes with him to give him passage, and then he's going to get paid. Of course, he's like, I'm in the clear. I don't have to worry about Jabba. So, this whole exchange is, I think, a little bit different from an adult size, because you're like, he's got it. He's definitely going to make it this time. Now it just comes down to life timing, basically.
Well, let's see.
And Guido's got him. He's like, okay.
Yeah. Well, let's see how the scene plays out. So Han's like, yeah, but this time I've got the money. Greedo says, Enjaya kula inti kun kuthuau. If you give it to me, I might forget I found you. Han's like, I don't have it with me. Tell Jabba. And then Greedo's like, Stena haikitsti hokoruye pulyanya ulwan spastika gushuku ponamathripi. Which always to me sounds like he's about to say 3PO. But no, he says Jabba's through with you. He has no time for smugglers who drop their shipments at the first sign of an Imperial cruiser. And Han says this interesting line, and I think it's interesting because he repeats it later, is, even I get boarded sometimes. Do you think I had a choice? And Greedo's like, yeah, that's it. That is like, it sounds like that's just the line that he always says as an excuse, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe as an excuse, or also maybe as the truth.
True. And then
and I think it was also when Obi-Wan's like, we want to avoid the Imperial entanglements. That's where he was like, okay, I've just been through this. So, but I think it's different with people and droids than necessarily smuggling shipments. Although in the world of Star Wars, we're not sure what any of the goods that are being smuggled are.
Spice sometimes.
Spice sometimes, yes.
Yeah. But that's true. That is true. There are a lot of things other than spice that are being smuggled, and I guess you just try not. Well, we know from Mandalorian, sometimes it's a little child.
Sometimes.
Although I don't know if that's constitutes smuggling, but I don't know. It's related somehow.
Yeah, I mean, it's fulfilling bounties, so maybe
that's what it is. Yeah, bounty hunting.
Bounty hunting.
Greedo's like, Tlok Jabba bupa gumpa niet panpa. You can tell that to Jabba. He may only take your ship, obviously. And then Han's like, over my dead body. And then Greedo's like, let me put on my voice doubler. Ukle nyuma, chesko pokatuklista klanko, yaoska.
I wasn't ready.
And of course, that's the idea. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. Which, yaoska, I guess. Long time.
I guess. Yeah. I mean, Solo knew what was coming because I'm sure, like, as it suggests, he and Guido have a history. So
I love how you're calling him Guido. Like.
Sorry.
No. It's really funny. A lot of the smuggling, how how do I put this? I feel like a lot of in Star Wars, and it's also like in this book that I'm reading at the moment, this which is the Last Thrawn book, where it's like a lot of the ruling families and the smuggler types sometimes are mafia, are portrayed in like a mafia like way. Yeah. Anyway, so Han says, "I'll bet you have," and then of course shoots, and one of them maybe shot first, and maybe it's the other one. Maybe it's at the same time. Who knows? Maybe sometimes one of them says McClunky.
It seems to change every once in a while, depending on what truth you want to stick to.
Yeah. And then I find this part so funny is like after the blaster goes off, there's someone in the background that goes like Babaloo or something like Mammaloo or Babaloo or something like that.
There's there's the reaction of like, okay. What I'm more worried about is who has to clean that up. I mean,
right. And Han's like, sorry about the mess. But the musicians stop and then pick right back up. The show goes on. They just
keep going. I have a feeling, as it's also hinted with, Luke earlier at the bar and everything like that, that mayhem tends to be a common occurrence in this place. So.
Yeah. I think it's very safe to say that this is a place of scum and villainy and mayhem. Yes.
Right.
And it seems like the way that the band stops and then starts up, it's sort of like this type of thing happens all the time. So
yeah,
just another day.
Yeah, I think the band looks around. Everyone good? Okay, I guess so. Measure 25. Let's go.
Which, like, I think is pretty realistic.
I think so too.
Yeah, I mean, I've never witnessed like a murder at a gig, but there definitely is a lot of like.
As I have not.
Yeah. Okay.
But
good.
I have seen disaster.
Oh yeah.
Like for example, the table with all the food on it suddenly collapsing to the floor.
Oh no.
And of course everyone goes, and then there's one guy in the back that might clap, find that funny, and then
Mammaloo.
You just keep playing. Yeah, Mammaloo. Mammaloo.
Like they think that was part of the entertainment. That's funny. Yeah, I've seen a lot of disaster, and I've seen a lot of like super awkward things that happen, and that's mostly what I'm used to seeing. Like especially when I used to play a lot of weddings. Like,
sure.
There were often things where it would be like, oh my, like we're just like cringing like, oh my gosh, and then the band leader's like, all right, just start again, like just repeat it, just keep repeating. Just vamp. Just vamp. Just keep vamping. Can you take a solo? Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think Figrin Dawn and the modal nodes are portrayed pretty. I feel good about this representation as a musician. I mean, just that it's realistic.
Yeah. That's it. I think it's realistic, and like I said, before, I think it's kind of like the Cantina is like the working man's gig. You're like, okay, you show up, you kind of played some of the songs. Hopefully you like them. Doesn't really matter as long as it's performed really well. Oh, some catastrophe happened. Everyone good? Okay, keep going. Yeah. We have 40 minutes until we take our next break.
Yeah, and they're like a house band, so they're not like too invested in like every minute and like every time they perform the song. They're just like, all right, it's going to be a long night. Everyone, it's going to be a long day. Everyone just strap in. Let's go for it. Yeah.
That's right.
A long hauler gig. Yeah, we know the type. So then we get the extremely loud TIE fighter as we get a brief shot of space. It's a very loud TIE fighter, super loud.
Yeah.
And then we're immediately into the Death Star, in the control room. And here we have Vader. Vader with not only his incredible voice, but also his incredible breathing. And he's like, Her
Yep.
resistance to the mind probe is considerable. It'll be some time before we can extract any information from her. Death Star ambiance.
But yeah, sorry to interrupt. Which I think is funny because if you know the full story, it now makes sense.
You mean that
You
she
know,
is force sensitive?
she resists. Yeah, she resists the mind probes very substantially,
Yeah, as she should.
as
And
she
now we
should.
know. Yeah.
Now we
Um,
know.
yeah.
Well, and I always thought that, as a kid, it seems like when the Empire would catch somebody, it seems like it would be pretty quick, and it was not alarming that it took a lot longer, but also they decided to go in a different direction of convincing her. So
Yeah, one that certainly sent a message. And then
to
the final, it's okay. It's also weird. It's also funny hearing that line in the context of like, this is a father trying to like tell his daughter what to do, and she's like, no, she's resisting.
right,
So it like works on so many levels. So the officer is like, the final checkout is completed. All systems are operational. What course shall we set? And I can't help but notice like Tarkin's hands in the background are just, they're like fidgeting. They're like, it's so good. It's I don't even know what to call it. It's like, just look at his fingers in the background of this. They're like, I don't know. It's like he's playing with a fidget spinner in his hand or something, but not really. He's just, I don't know. It looks like evil. Like it's like his hands are thinking. His hands are doing some evil machinations.
right.
Yeah.
Which I think is just a testament to movie making earlier on. There was always something distinctive about a bad guy.
Oh, say more.
It could be the way, no, just the way like they stand or the way they look at the camera or many things like that, so you relate to, oh yes, they're evil, not just how they talk or their lines, but also in their poise and presentation.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like, I mean, they call them character actors, like for a
Yeah,
reason, but they're like a fully, I don't know, a fully embodied character that does stuff. But you said, I think you said something like back then or something. Do you feel like it's different some of the time now?
yeah, I think so. I mean, I just kind of remembering from when I was growing up and watching movies, I always knew there was who the bad guy was. It was so obvious. It was either obvious with the music, which is again also in this story, but it was also obvious with like a lot of the way they stood. Like a lot of the bad guys would stand awkwardly, whereas the hero would be tall and straight. So you're like, oh, okay, and they're always like scheming, so they're always hunched over and like,
Well, Tarkin doesn't hunch
kind of
over.
melding their fingers together, rubbing their hands. So it's kind of the same thing. That's what I always equate, especially when it comes to things like this. I'm like, yes, evil, yes, it's reinforced that they're evil. Yes, they look evil. Okay, and of course, his face structure also, I think, just as an actor, was like, oh, yes, he doesn't look normal.
Well, he has like the sharp angles,
Right.
like the Imperial uniforms.
Exactly. Hmm.
Yeah, that's it. It was such interesting casting. Like Tarkin is like such a distinct person. Like Peter Cushing was such a distinct actor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, then Tarkin's like, perhaps she would respond to an alternative form of persuasion. And Vader goes, "What do you mean?" Which I think is a funny line because I mean, I don't think it's funny, but I have this, theory that Vader just doesn't really care about anything that's happening here. Like he's never the one that's like, obviously he's not running the show. Tarkin has him around, his finger and most of Vader's lines seem to reinforce that for me. Like Vader's just wants to believe in his hokey religion. That's like pretty much it. Vader is on his own like personal mission and being part of the Empire is just like part of it because he needs to he needs to like earn points from Daddy Palpatine. But Vader is not running the show. He didn't think
Just like
yeah.
frequent flyer miles from Palpatine.
Could Can I get another punch on my punch card, Daddy?
Do I get the upgrade on my next Imperial shuttle?
Well, it's like, can I get another valve on my suit? Like, can I get another
Yeah,
button?
true.
This one makes fruit levitate. Just kidding.
That's right.
So Vader doesn't run the show. He doesn't think of the Alderaan intimidation. That's all Tarkin. It's all Tarkin.
Yeah.
So, speaking of which, Tarkin goes, I think it is time we demonstrated the full power of this station. Set your course for Alderaan. And the officer says, with pleasure. Yeah. So, so that happens. Do you have any more thoughts about that scene?
No, I just, emotionally, that was always, oh, goodness, what are they going to do? Because we still haven't seen what the Death Star is yet.
Oh, because we haven't seen it, in operation.
In action.
Yeah.
Right.
So now we have this transition where it's like, I think it's like the barn door wipe or something, where it's like it opens from the inside to back to Tatooine, Mos Eisley. And we hear this like clarinet line. I think it's like doubled in the clarinets and bass clarinets. I'll try to, can you hear this? Can you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
It's like, oh my God. Oh my God. It's like this really meandering, like, yeah. I like that. I like.
Well, and the one thing that sticks out even for you playing it is like, it starts with, the strong intervals and then it goes a little dissonant right away, but there's still strong intervals.
Yeah, like, because it does start with the.
Right.
And then it's.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like.
Right.
And then it's like. It's much more like atonal-ish than some of the other themes. And
right.
It goes into something that sounds like Imperial after that. And I think the fact that line is doubled, it's doubled in the clarinet and bass clarinet, I think. And so it's just in unison. There's no like chords with that line. It's just this like singular line, and it goes faster than I played it and imagine it with like woodwinds. But yeah, if you're following along on the soundtrack, or if you have the soundtrack, it's out right at the beginning of the track called Millennium Falcon / Imperial Cruiser Pursuit. So yeah, really interesting little line. It's a very like Star Wars-y line, I feel.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
One of the things that I always like about John Williams, especially in this, is like, a lot of his stuff is open, or like there's a lot of distance between everything, which I don't know, it's just maybe his preference, but also it always gave me a sense like, oh yes, we're in the vastness of somewhere else.
What do you mean by distance?
Just like the total range of melodies.
So you mean
themes,
like
I should
the
say.
amount of space between the bottom note and the top note?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. And just in general with a lot of his themes for this, there's a lot of that.
I agree with you so much, and it's something that I notice when I listen to newer scores is most of the themes that I hear don't have like nearly as much of the range as the original like John Williams ones. And listeners, like when I say range in this sense, like I mean it in a specific musical context. I don't mean like the range in terms of like genres or like a generic range.
Right.
I mean literally like if you think of your vocal range, like the lowest part that you can sing and the very highest part that you can sing. So what we're talking about is how like in a John Williams theme, often it will go from like such a low place to such a high place, and it'll like literally span a great distance of notes within that theme. Whereas I feel like a lot of themes that I hear more recently, or by other composers who are not John Williams necessarily, they're more within a comfortable 5-note range, or like, yeah, it's even a lot
Sure,
to get
and
to.
I totally agree with you on a lot of that. I've noticed that too, and it's not just in scoring and arranging and anything like that. It's also just in music in general, like what's popular, and a lot of the performers and singers today. Their songs and how they're written is actually, I think, a little
In a very small range.
closer together. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So, but also, it can be catchy,
Oh
aka
yeah, yeah,
Baby
yeah,
Shark.
yeah.
Very, very simple. But with in context of this and what we're talking about, yeah, the range of themes is I think substantial.
So this is a really okay. I'm really glad you brought this up. This is something. It's definitely not that. First of all, you're right. It's not just in film music, and it's not even just in classical music. It is in pop music. It's in a lot of genres. Um, on my Instagram, like I do this thing called Guess the Tune, and every week, I do like a song cover that someone requests, and
Oh yeah,
then it kind of is like a chain. And I've been doing it for years, every week, and that is something that like I've been noticing like before this podcast just from doing that, because when people request a song, like when people request certain songs from like certain eras or whatever, like it is sometimes really easy for me to play the melody on the violin, and then from the melody it is recognizable as the tune that it is. And sometimes
sure.
sometimes it's a really good song that a song that like I love, but the melody is not where the interest is. The interest is in like the way the harmonies are maybe stacked, or maybe in the
Sure,
way,
sure.
in like something in the production of it that isn't
Like the
translated
rhythmic undertones or things
exactly,
like that. Yeah,
that isn't
yeah.
translated well with just the melody. So when I try to just play the melody, it can sound just like da, 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 da. Sometimes with like a little extra note, but then sometimes it's like, once like someone requested Somewhere Over the Rainbow once, and I was like, see, this is like so obvious, but do, 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 do. But again, it's like both good songs, but like the interest is baked into different places.
Different places. Yeah,
And in terms of this John Williams type of scoring, like I think the range is a really good. I think it's a function of like scoring it for orchestra, because if you consider like the range of the orchestra as an instrument, like let alone each instrument in the orchestra,
oh yeah,
some instruments have a tremendous range. Like the violin has a really big range. But then if you consider like that, you don't only have violin, but you can also have violas and cellos under that, and you can also have basses under that, and you can also have like piccolos above that. You could even have like,
sure.
and you can have like different variations of that range, with different timbres. Like you could have trombones, and you could have tubas, and like so if you have the whole orchestra at your fingertips, then and you only used a tiny range, like some might say that would be a waste.
Some. It's all about taste, of course, and your
Yes.
personal taste. But also, when some of my favorite pieces are the ones that tax the orchestra, the full range of the orchestra. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean that's my taste.
It's my taste too. It's my taste too. I mean, at least for a big work, I would say that
Mm,
isn't necessarily the case if it's just like a short portion, because that's the whole point. It's like some portions will just be really skewed toward one part of the range on purpose. Like if you think of
right,
like the Emperor's theme, it's like all just this really low section, and that's it. It's not the whole
right.
range. But if you consider like the whole score, and you want to represent like a big scope of emotions and like development and like a lot, then in that case I would say it's good to utilize like the orchestra.
Yeah, it's also, it's a heck of a challenge to do that too. I mean, I'm glad I'm not a composer because I feel there's too much that you can do with an orchestra. Just an orchestra, never mind
Oh
anything
my
else.
god.
With the amount of timbres, the colors, and then how you mix them and how you play through them. I mean, I know we're digressing just a little bit, but the man, it just blows my mind sometimes. It's just like, you get the right color, the right timbre, and the right melody, and sometimes it just, I'm just enthralled, and I'm like, wow, that's an orchestra. I can't believe it.
Yeah. I agree with you. I am a composer, currently starting on a full orchestra piece, and so I'm feeling this in my soul of how hard it is.
How are you feeling today? I'm kind of feeling woodwindy. Okay, well, guess that oboe, maybe? Okay, how about the violin? Okay, we'll try there. Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities, and each one can substantially change the music. So even with what you're saying, like earlier, like why did he double it? For the scene, why was it double? Why wasn't it just a single instrument? Or why didn't he add more? Or those. I mean, who knows? I mean, this could have been something. He goes, I need 16 seconds of music. Let's write this out. But also, I don't feel he's just that way either. So
I don't feel he's that way either.
I feel like there's intent behind everything.
Well, I can say that, like, if I were writing that and I had decided, whether I could have just done a single instrument going do 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 do, I think I would double it for if I wanted it to be reinforced, like, because when it's one, I feel like when there's one, especially a light instrument like clarinet, I would consider it to be a lighter instrument in terms of timbre, maybe. Like you play trombone,
Sure.
I could say that a heavy instrument.
Yep. Can be.
Like compared to the clarinet, for sure.
Yes, of course.
And I feel like the flute would also be a light instrument. And when you have one line, especially one that's so meandering, because this line goes through, it has a lot of accidental notes in it. It's not like an easy one to sing. It can feel meandering, and to have one single light instrument do that, it might come off as wishy-washy or like a mistake or like an improv or like something not as substantial. And I feel like to anchor it down with the bass clarinet doing the same notes, especially with no harmony underneath it, it's like whenever I hear two musicians playing something in unison, it feels a lot more intentional. Especially when there's something weird about that line, because you can't just chalk it up to one person's improvisation. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, no, one of my favorite things is as a trombone player, you get to substantial parts of music when you are literally doubling usually the trumpet melody, or at least one of the trombones is, and you're like, oh yeah, and it just gives, even if it's just at the octave, I mean, it just gives so much more. So yeah, I mean, to put two instruments there, and I mean, yeah, there's a lot more to it. I totally agree with you.
As a trombone player, I'm curious, like, because the original Cantina band doesn't have, like, the recording doesn't have trombone in it, but it does have saxophone, it has trumpet, it has clarinet, it has, piano, it has ARP synthesizer. What part does the trombone play? Trumpet part or?
Yeah, when we perform it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's actually mostly woodwinds, and then the brass kind of doubled the second part of it. So it's like, boop, 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 and then we'll add just a solo instrument on each.
Okay.
And that's just how our arrangement was. But yeah, it's kind of light and fluffy, and then it just gets a little bit more, and then it's light and fluffy again, and a little bit more. So it's just how it's scored for how we perform it.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. Different interpretations of music can bring out different qualities. I think that's, one of the fun parts about doing that stuff. So then we get to, we have the main theme here. And this is, of course, oh, no, wait. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, we have 3PO based. Oh, he's saying lock the door, R2. That's right. This is like a very short
Lock
scene.
the door, yeah.
Yeah, and the stormtrooper's like, check this side of the street. The door's locked. Move on to the next. And, we hear their voice filtered through their, whatever, their thing. Their, the stormtrooper mask, the helmet, whatever.
Their communication
thingy.
Array in their armor, yes.
And 3PO always giving R2 a hard time. Goes, I would much rather have gone with Master Luke than stay here with you. I don't know what all this trouble is about, but I'm sure it must be your fault. You watch your language.
The typical banter, and of course a little bit of comic relief.
Yep. And then we are still on Tatooine, and we cut to Luke and Obi-Wan, and Luke is trying to sell his speeder. And here we hear the main theme. It's like the, And the way that this main theme sounds to me is the more naive version of it. I don't know, like it's it's like on woodwind. It's not. It's more of the slow version. It's more of the sort of main theme I associate with like Luke in his Tatooine life, like Aunt Beru could be next door. It's the slower. It's a little bit more. It
Well,
just feels more naive.
I believe it's also solo flute, right? I believe.
Yeah.
And it kind of comes in, and I always like it because it's the theme associated with Luke and how it comes in and out throughout. But it being a solo, flute, especially the perform is amazing. By the way, every time I hear it, I'm like, oh, so easy. This makes it sound so easy, yet it's not. You know what I mean? But I do like it because it's not. It's there's nothing else that's taking away or supporting it or interjecting. It's just like I kind of imagine, like, you look at I would imagine, I don't have children, but you look at your children's baby pictures, or you look at somebody else's pictures of when they were really young, and you're like, oh, they're so cute, you know what I mean? And then then they grew up, but in this picture they're just so cute. And that's kind of how I look at here, because Luke is kind of leaving his life behind, and for the most part it was, I mean, I would assume fairly simple compared to what's about to happen. So it's just very
right now his challenge is selling his speeder for a good price.
Yes, exactly. I hope I get a good price.
Yeah, that's a good point. This really is like he's selling off his childhood toys to fund his next mission. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
so true. So Luke's like, all right, give it to me. I'll take it. Look at this. Ever since the XP-38 came out, they just aren't in demand. Oh, and Obi-Wan clearly knows, like, oh, Luke. It's like, it'll be enough. It'll be enough.
Luke, there's a bigger
you will not be complaining about this in one day.
Exactly. Once we get to Alderaan, I think we'll understand the speeder's price tag right now is not that important.
Yeah. We're not going to get Luke 2 movies down going like, oh, I wish I bargained a better price for that speeder. I really got ripped off. I just thought of the perfect line I could have told them. I could have told them that it was like really well maintained. I forgot that part.
Wow. I just, it's so funny. Can you imagine just the outtakes of how that would go?
Yeah.
Luke wakes up in a cold sweat 30 years from now. I swear I could have gotten a better price for that speeder.
That speeder came back in fashion. It could have been a collectible. It would be a classic speeder now. So then we get to scene 66, according to the original screenplay. Interior of the docking bay 94. Some fun Star Wars numbers there. Here is Tuba City. Is this?
Oh yeah.
Big tuba associated with Jabba.
Well, I mean, big tuba, big character on the screen. I don't think Jabba goes around sounding like a flute. So,
and that's one of the ways that like instruments often. Like the size of instruments will sort of match the scope or the size of something on screen.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, trombones. A lot of times, trombones are with the substantial darker characters because we're bigger and we're heavier and we can go a little bit lower. And the one thing I do like about Jabba and the tuba is and John Williams is great at this. The tuba isn't necessarily like a paperweight or a heavy thing. It's actually quite melodic here and going all over its range, which to me is always amazing. It's like how many I know this will sound funny, but how many people really compose for the tuba to the totality of what it can do, and I think a lot of times it can be overlooked.
That's a really good point. The tuba is sort of known for being the Oompa instrument, right?
Yeah.
And doesn't often get its moment to be melodic like you said. And here it's like going like doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. It's like, and the fact that it's not just there to be an anchor for another instrument like flutes or
Right,
something,
right.
is significant. Love to
I
see
was
it.
I always like it too because when you go through it and you see Jabba on the screen and you listen to this and most of the time I wasn't even aware. I didn't know it was a tuba till years down the road. Talking to tuba players, they're like, "Yeah, John Williams is one of the hardest things to play," and I'm like, "What do you mean?" And then they're like, "Oh, just go listen to this," and I was like, "Oh, wow!" Like my world was all of a sudden expanded because I never knew. And then you get into a scene like this and you just listen to it, you're like, "Wow, you're right."
Yeah, and I think like in Return of the Jedi, he has like even more of a tuba thing. Like I feel like it's a tuba
Hmm.
excerpt for like tubists. Like seriously, like I
Yeah,
like you
yeah,
could you can YouTube like you know tuba solo Star Wars and like find orchestral players like doing it for
yeah.
sure. Um,
Yeah, definitely losing sleep on preparing it too, you know? It's
yeah,
like, whew, this is difficult.
yeah. So we have the tuba doing stuff. We have Jabba's big tail like trailing behind him. Um, and Jabba is speaking Huttese. My favorite part is when he says Crispa Greedo. He's like Crisper Greedo or something, which is why did you fry poor Greedo? Crispa Greedo. Um, great translation. I wouldn't
Right.
need the translation to know what he's talking about there. Because I know from people who grew up with the non-specialized edition, did you ever see this when there was, I believe, just like a human Jabba, right?
Did no, I don't think the scene was even in there until they redid it with
Okay,
Jabba.
okay, that's okay. I knew that something about the scene was
Yeah.
definitely different,
This
and it wasn't in the
this was
original.
correct. I don't think it was in the original. I think they added it for the special edition. And I think it was if I'm correct in remembering, I mean, it was shot with a human and not Jabba as we know.
Yeah.
So they actually put, the effects over the original actor in the scene.
Oh, okay, okay. That would explain why on the track, Millennium Falcon slash Imperial Shuttle, whatever track this is on the soundtrack, why the I was like trying to find the tuba part on it, and I was like, this track is different. There's not this section, and that would explain why that music was probably added later too. Maybe it's the same as
Yeah,
the
I
Return
believe
of the
so.
Jedi thing, because I had this thought from the soundtrack that the tuba doesn't come in until Return of the Jedi, but now it comes in here, and I think that's the reason. Yeah, okay, it's all coming together in my mind. Okay, more spotlight for tuba, keeping it consistent. If you're gonna bring in Jabba, bring in the tuba.
Might
Um,
as well.
yeah, retcon the score. No, I like it. I like it. Um, so of course Jabba's like, you basically Jabba's really amiable here, I feel. It's one thing that strikes me is like Han's
Yeah.
like, not pulling through, Han's like, right here, Jabba, I've been waiting for you. You didn't think I was gonna run, did you? And Jabba's like, he's not like, all right, I'm setting my rancor loose on you. He's like, Han, my boy, you disappoint me. Why haven't you paid me? And why did you fry poor Greedo? And then Han, it feels like Han is given a lot more like leverage in this situation than I would have expected him to get from Jabba. Like it seems like Han is really being portrayed here as, you know, he might be in trouble, but he's still cool and he still has the upper hand and he's still like, we're supposed to think that Han is like definitely the cool guy. So he's like,
Well, and yeah, and I totally agree. Even with Greedo and the bounty that Jabba. What I always took away from this scene was that Jabba was still kind of in his prime. With going out and making sure everything was good, not necessarily just on his barge, as it is a little bit later. But that he and Solo do have a long history and they're buddies. And yes, Solo kind of messed up with whatever shipment offended Jabba, but he's like, ready to forgive you as long as you have more money. Pay
Hmm.
me and more money, and everything is forgiven. And then we keep going on doing business. And yeah,
And
but
maybe
I did
Jabba just
think
had
it
a good
was
day.
yeah, maybe that's what it was. But I did always think it was funny that Han Solo, decides to like step on Jabba as he goes behind him, and I'm like, come on, Han,
Yeah.
really?
Um, yeah. Well, then Han's like, look, Jabba, next time you want to talk to me, come see me yourself. Don't send one of those
Right,
twerps. That's bold.
exactly,
Okay. And then Jabba's like, Han, I can't make exceptions. What if everyone who smuggled for me dropped their cargo at the first sign of an Imperial starship? It's not good business. And then Han with his
right,
classic line, look, Jabba, even I get boarded sometimes. You think I had a choice? Which is the exact same thing he said to Greedo.
exact line.
And he's like, but I got a nice easy charter. I'll pay you back. Plus a little extra. I just need a little more time. And of course, the easy charter is Obi-Wan and Luke. And then Jabba's
Exactly.
like, Han, my boy, you're the best. So for an extra, I love you,
Indeed.
man. You are just you're the best. So for an extra 20, 15 Jabba, don't push it. And then we get
Right.
the
We're gonna leave it there. To be continued.
that's what the tuba is saying.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So Jabba's like 15, okay, 15. But if you fail me again, I'll put a price on your head so big you won't be able to go near a civilized system, which is a little bit, menacing. And then Han's line, which I always cite when people claim that the sequels have humor that is too earthly, which people can think that how like people talk about the sequels like, oh, this humor feels too like, I don't know, too real world, and it kind of takes me out of the story.
Yeah.
And it definitely, if it takes people out of the story, I that's I can't argue with that. But here, this one, it rings as just as much as that one, and it's Han saying, Jabba, you're a wonderful human being. Where I'm like,
Right.
that feels like something I hear. That feels like an Earth thing too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny too when you're a wonderful human being. I don't know if that's an insult or a compliment. Really, I mean, if Jabba is the apex of his gang, is being human awful? And he's like, hey, you're a wonderful human. It's like, is it a backhanded compliment? I don't know.
I feel like it's a sarcastic jab. Like, obviously, Jabba's not a human,
Right.
and he's portrayed in a way that I feel like audiences, at least at the time, were supposed to think like Jabba's like scary and gross and whatever, and definitely not a human. And he's like has this tail that Han's going out of his way to step on, and
Yeah.
so Han saying like, Jabba, you're a wonderful quote unquote human being, like feels to me like a jab for sure.
Sure.
So that's that scene. Yay, Tuba. Tuba spotlight. And then we get back to Obi-Wan and Luke, and Obi-Wan's basically like, if the ship's as fast as he's boasting, we ought to do well. And here we have that main theme in the same way that we heard it before. Again, the naive main theme, with
Mm-hmm.
like little plucky notes in the background, those little like plucky harps. And then we're kind of nearing the end of the 5 minutes, and we're back at Docking Bay 94, and Luke's like sees the Falcon, and he's like, "What a piece of junk!"
Yeah, I know.
And meanwhile, this whole time we hear this like beeping sound, and I'm not exactly sure where the beep is coming from. Actually, something in the docking bay, I guess. I don't know.
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like this incessant beep, and there's no music here. And on like we're just in the docking bay, and we're just faced with Millennium Falcon. We're just hearing the sound of the Falcon. Maybe the Falcon's making the beep,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe it's like when you're in a garage where stuff is happening, and it's like to make sure that for safety, like the trucks will all beep when they
Oh, sure. Yeah,
do stuff.
yeah.
So maybe it's ships
Yeah,
might be taking
the
off,
docking clamps are activated, so you have the little beep
something
so
like
you don't
that.
take off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Han's like, she'll make it past or she'll make 0.5 past light speed. She may
0.5,
not,
yeah.
yeah, she may not look like much, but she's got it where it counts, kid. I've made a lot of special modifications myself, which to me is like,
Which,
is that supposed to instill confidence? Well,
well, I mean, you got to also think about you're coming up with like the grease lightning hot rodders. To modify your own car is like an amazing thing, especially when this came out. It's like, oh yeah, I definitely put my own elbow grease into this to make it more than just the factory model.
I see what you're saying. Okay. To me, when I hear like I've made a lot of special modifications myself, I'm like, well, do I trust that special modifications can either go really well or
Oh
really
sure.
poorly? So I don't know
Well,
if I trust
if
you
I was
enough
Luke,
to, yeah,
yeah, if I'm Luke, I'm definitely not believing it at all. I mean,
yeah,
especially because this is a piece of junk.
yeah. Um, and he's like, and Han's like, but we're a little rushed, so if you'll just get on board, we'll get out of here. And then 3PO's so polite. It's like walking by, he's like, hello, sir.
I know.
And that's the beginning of a beautiful friendship between 3PO and Han. Not really, but
Yeah,
you
not
know,
really, but yes.
3PO tries.
Some sort of friendship where they're both standing next to each other or near each other.
Yeah. So that's the end of the 5 minutes.
Hmm.
Did you have any other thoughts about any of the scenes that we just went through?
Well, I mean, I was the substantial scene for Han Solo and who shot first is always, the big controversy amongst fans, and even with myself, growing up with the original version, I don't remember,
Oh, okay. That's
and
good to hear.
I just know that Han Solo did the little tactic where he raises his hand to kind of draw your attention away from the fact that he's uncoupling his blaster, and I always thought he was just
Like when
like
he's
the
kind of
coolest
looking at
guy.
the wall, he's like, let me
Yeah,
just, yeah.
yeah, yeah. But even in the scene, I think especially going through it for the 5 minutes that we're looking at, the amount of now I know there's little scenes and little vignettes and different characters throughout, but the amount of music that supports the scenes is pretty substantial, as we've gone through. But it's just something that when you look at it little by little, how much time and effort was put into just making all of this what it is. And every time my brain is just always floored. It's just like, wow, really? Wow. And like, even you bringing this up, I'm like, yes, it's just kind of bringing me back a little bit. I'm loving it.
Yeah. This is such an interesting 5 minute scene because I mean, like I was saying in the intro, it's like everyone's kind of tying up some loose ends or just like
Yeah,
doing some final preparations. And like each of these characters or character pairs, if you consider like the droids a pair and then Chewie and Han a
sure.
pair, they all started out this movie on separate islands, like doing their separate thing. The droids were together going through their whole adventure. They've already gone through a whole Jawa sandcrawler adventure themselves. There's,
Mm-hmm.
of course, Leia on her own, and she's doing her thing on the Death Star.
Right.
And then there's Luke, who's like, on the homestead, and he goes through his whole thing with like buying the droids, wanting to escape, going to look after them, and then finding his aunt and uncle. Like Luke's already been through so much. We're not even an hour into the movie,
Right.
and
I know.
Obi-Wan's like, Obi-Wan was just this random like mythical character, almost like, oh, there's maybe old Ben or something, and suddenly he's part of
Right.
the journey now too. And then like separately, Han has had this whole other thing happening with you know Jabba and Greedo and whatever, and he just killed him. Like, and now all of these characters are coming together. It's mind blowing.
Yeah,
Like from
it
totally
really
separate
is.
places, and they're about to meet up with Leia too. But like they've already all kind of met her except Han, but like they've through the hologram. So like all these, yeah, like this. I mean, I definitely took it for granted, but like the structure of it is like, how did all this happen in like in
Sure.
55 minutes? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like and the thing is like I care about all of them. Like it's not like
Oh yeah.
just, cuz they could have just introduced a lot of people with like a lot of exposition and whatever, but like I feel like we've been on journeys already with a lot of these. Even like the droids, like significant
Right.
amount of time was spent with just the droids and like their relationship and getting captured and being on the sandcrawler and meeting other droids and then being sold and then like the bad motivator and then finally they got R2. Like just so much it's like so much has in a sense not that much has happened in the scheme of Star Wars. You know, it's not like they've talked about the
Right.
Death Star yet and the trench run, but on a character level, the characters have been established so in such a detailed way. I think it's amazing.
Right. Yeah. And it's, I mean, even this, like just Jabba, Han Solo, you know, they're long, long buddies just in this scene alone, you know, you're like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good. Star Wars is good. It's pretty good.
I know it is.
It's pretty good. So listeners, if you, I am like Justin in that I don't really care about who shot first. Personally,
I don't.
I don't care. I've never really cared. But if you are curious, then I will leave you a video that goes through all of the changes. And I just don't think I would be a good emissary of that information because, like, I would have to just keep watching. I would just have to base it on the video because I don't really have it all in my memory. Like, even though I keep looking it up, like, I still don't even like really remember the order of the changes. All I know is that McClunky's my favorite.
Right.
so, so yeah, if it's something that's meaningful to you, I recommend Hello Greedo's videos on all of the special edition changes. He's like really good at keeping track of that stuff and has a lot of videos about specialized edition, despecialized editions, the special editions, all of the changes. And well, I mean, his channel name is Hello Greedo. So yeah, it's a video called "Oh My God, It Was Changed Again, McClunky." And it compares all the versions from 1977 to today. I'll put the link in the show notes. So it's pretty entertaining. So, okay. Anyway, I'm curious. Oops, sorry. Justin, as someone who like, you've been to Galaxy's Edge a ton of times, obviously, and I was your +1 for Galaxy's Edge, so we have been there together.
For the preview,
For the preview,
yeah, absolutely.
And we did go to Oga's Cantina, which was my only time that I've been there to the Cantina because you need like you need some planning to go there.
There's a little bit of planning involved, yes.
What do you think? Like, how do you? What does it feel like being in a cantina, like in real life, versus this cantina that you see on screen?
Well, and I think, you know, of course, with all the, you know, with all what the cantina is, if you think of what a cantina is, it's just people getting together to share drinks and food. And even the soundtrack of Olga's Now, I think is well done, like for who we are as a society and what we like to hear, but also what would be within the Star Wars universe. I think it's a pretty good representation. You know, it's basically right now it's spun by, you know, the robot DJ who comes up with a whole bunch of different tracks and tunes that are played, but each one, like I said, kind of represents. And a lot of times, you know, the few times I've been there, it's one of those things where I still find my toes tapping on the floor, even if I'm not necessarily paying attention to the music. You know, I'm just there with my friends and we're having a beverage of some sort. So I'm glad Mayhem doesn't come into that one because I don't know how it would react in real life, but
Mayhem?
It is great to be in there. Yeah, Mayhem, you know. I don't know of anyone losing any arms to lightsabers while we're, you know, drinking there. So
oh good. Good to hear. Although I have heard that they do like random power outages.
They do, which is kind of fun. Everything kind of flashes and everyone kind of is like, what is going on? And then, you know, everything kind of restores over the time. Yeah.
But instead of Bith musicians playing If Only Whatever I Was Lonely or whatever that song is called.
Right.
It's for not a galaxy far, or no, it's for now. It's also not Mos Eisley. We're on Batu there. And,
correct.
And so, it's a DJ spinning tunes, a little more upbeat, like dance music type thing.
Yeah.
That's the one time that I went. Like I really, it felt seedy, like in a in the way it should feel seedy.
And I think one of the things that is its advantage is the layout and how it is set up, where you have, kind of like in the corner, you could have the Han Solo Greedo seats, but there's larger tables that you can have larger people to, but also, there's the chairs at the bar too. I mean, it is a true cantina in the aspect of there's different seats and how it lays out. But it's, I can imagine some smuggler being in the corner, just kind of hanging out there, waiting for somebody to approach them for a job. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's funny. Okay, I'm gonna play a bit of. Okay, I'm gonna ask you the Star Wars questionnaire, the Star Wars Music Minute questionnaire. So to transition to get you in the mood for it. Okay, this is you starting with the main theme. The trumpets are wailing. Oh, so that part's you.
Yep.
Straight into Yoda. That's hilarious.
Yep. The transitions are really good.
I love that chord. Oh my God.
Where's it gonna go?
Oh, that's a good transition. I didn't know where it was going to go after that. So this is a live recording of the Disneyland Band performing their Star Wars melody at the parks. Just someone recorded it on a day where it was not yet too noisy.
Bass trombone solo.
Do you play bass trombone in the band?
Not in the Disney band, but I can.
Teray. Leia Teray. Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Duel of the Fates.
Having drums helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like this would be so fun. Nice. Throne room?
Yeah.
Saxophone. I love this one because it's the Force theme, but with different rhythm.
Yeah. Still playing Star Wars music.
The part where Oh man, honestly, I thought that like I was just gonna play until the Cantina, but then I couldn't stop listening. Then I was like, oh, I just want to see like one more. I just want to like just one more. Like, and then the transition, I just kept getting roped in by the next one. That was so fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. I love
Quite
how
welcome. Yeah.
I
By
love
the
how-
way, your reaction. Sorry. Your reaction. For those of you who can see this on video, the reaction of your face the whole time is exactly how I feel when I listen to it. You know, even as somebody that just comes in, but also as a player. You know, when you see the audience reacting to it, it's substantially amazing, and of course, it is so much fun to play too. So.
that's so cool. It's so gratifying to see like, yeah, to actually like to actually be like enthused by what you're playing. It's really nice.
Yeah.
I have to just like, I appreciate how it ends on the like the end credits part.
Yeah.
That's like the part of the movie where the final scene eclipses into the end credits of like in Star Wars is like my favorite part. And
Yep.
that is like such a like that's like one of the best parts of watching Star Wars movies to me is that part where it just ends and it's like so oh my gosh, I was getting so hyped up for that part. I was like, what theme are they going to end with? But you just ended
Right.
with stick to what works.
Yep.
That's awesome.
It's awesome.
And it's the one that's consistent, like it's the one constant amongst the films. So
Right. Yep.
that's amazing. Cool. I love that. Yeah, that's great. Okay. So now that's a good segue to the Star Wars Music Minute Questionnaire.
Okay.
And it's going to be the same 3 questions that I ask every guest. Question number 1. In exactly 3 words, what does Star Wars sound like?
Galactic thematic masterpiece.
Ooh. That's all 3 syllables too. Okay, number 2. What is something related to Star Wars music or sound that you want to learn more about?
I was always impressed with the sound effects of, you know, the lightsabers and, you know, even the ships and how they came up with that. Because especially, you know, at the time, I don't remember it resembling anything that I identified in the world. You know, maybe a TIE fighter going by is more like, you know, a jet, but, you know, definitely the lightsaber thing was a whole new soundscape for me.
That's a good one. And finally, what is a score or soundtrack that you're fond of besides anything Star Wars?
The one that stands out in terms of the epicness, at least in my experience, will be the Gladiator by, I think, Hans Zimmer.
Cool.
Yeah.
No, I don't think anyone said that one yet. maybe. Awesome. Well,
I don't know. It's just the one for me.
Yeah. The listeners, the themes heard in this section were the main theme, A section. And of course, we heard the end of Cantina Band 2 on the soundtrack. Also on the soundtrack, you can find some of the music heard in this set of minutes on the tracks called Millennium Falcon / Imperial Cruiser Pursuit, and, or depending on the version of the soundtrack you have, a track called Inner City. And finally, Justin, where can people find you online, or if you have social media?
Oh, you can just search for my name, Justin Mitnik. You can find me. I'm out there. There's not a lot of Justin Mitniks in the world, so I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I feel like this show, first of all, I've had 3 Justins on this show, but none of them have had an M. Like no Justin Mitniks. Don't worry. And I'm at least glad that everyone has a different last initial. Because
it's like we planned it that way. Exactly.
And all of you have been have been musicians, and you've met one of them because you've been doing that together. But anyway,
yeah. I know.
Very funny. Okay, so I'll put all the links to Justin's social media in the description. And also, if you go to Disneyland in Anaheim, California, you might see him playing as part of the Disneyland Band. Maybe.
Exactly.
I always try to find him whenever I go there. And he used to be in Pixarmonic too, but that went away. So sad. That was really
went
good.
away.
But anyway,
I love that one.
Yeah. So that is it for today on Star Wars Music Minute. Next week, we will be finally crossing the 1 hour mark. We're going to be doing minutes 56 through 60. And if you have any notes for me in the meantime, or when you're watching this or listening, whenever, you can leave a comment. You can send an email at podcast@starwarsmusicminute.com. You can leave a voice message at starwarsmusicminute.com/comlink. And you can just tweet me or find me on TikTok or whatever, Star Wars Music Minute, on all the platforms, except Twitter's Star Wars Musmin. So never mind. It's not all the platforms. But anyway, you know where to find me. If you want to learn more about the musical themes of Star Wars, I recommend Frank Lehman's catalog. As always, I will have that linked in the description as well. And with that, may the Force be with you, and see you next week on Star Wars Music Minute.
May the Force be with you.